Hi friends, today I'm teaching you part 2 of 5 simple watercolor flowers. I'm really excited to show you this one, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're going to start with what I would call our buttercup flower. Now these flowers, I'm not going to be focused so much on the realistic details as the idea of things. So some of the flowers, some of the leaves, some of the petals may not be exactly realistic, but that's not what I'm focusing on today, okay? We're gonna do the idea of things. So I've got this brownish kind of mustard yellow. I've got my number 8 round brush, and we're going to start with the middle of these flowers. So I'm just gonna do some little spiky bits here, kind of like a star shape, except it's not a, traditional star. So we'll just do that in the center, and I'm gonna do 2 of those. So we're gonna do things in layers, which means that we're going to get some drawing time in between things as we're painting other flowers, and just try to have a fun time of it, okay? So we'll have our centers there, and I'm gonna skip over to the Queen Anne's lace. I've got my liner brush, and we're gonna mix up some of our lovely green color. So this is a sap green, and it's really hard to mix with a liner. See how thin the liner is? It's wonderful, but it is a little bit more challenging. So we want to have enough water, enough paint that it moves around. See how it's not moving as much as I'd like it. So see how it's moving really good, and it's dripping when you move it in a vertical, what is this, vertical? Vertical direction, there we go. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're going to do a little stem in the middle, and then kind of like a C-curve shape. And we're just curving up varying lengths. All right, curving up around that middle part. I'm gonna do the other side too. And if you work quickly, you're not gonna think too much about it or overthink it at all. Hopefully not. Varying lengths, so some of them are longer, some of them are shorter, but I'm still trying to curve up and around, okay? And then we're going to do our stem right here. It's a little bit of a curve, that's fine. Just like so. And then they have sometimes these little kind of tendrils here. So we're just gonna add those in. You notice those a lot in flowers like poppies. They have these little tendrils, cosmos as well. And I think Ranunculus, which is what we're painting today. Isn't that kind of fun? So we're just adding those in, and we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to come back to it to do the floral part. So we're just skipping around a lot today. So the next one we're doing is the anemone, which I just did a tutorial, and I'm getting, and it's going to be out in the next probably a little bit. So anyway, yes, that video should be something. If you want to paint more ranunculus, then it's a whole vase full. So I'm I wanted to have a fairly large middle here. So we're going to do a round center. And this shows me I need a little bit more water on my brush. So let's dab it on the paper towel because we don't want too much liquid. And we're gonna fill in that circle just like that. Maybe leave a little bit of white for a highlight. And then we're going to draw out some little lines. Just filling that in a little bit more there. Okay, so I have a clean, damp brush, and let's see if we can just put some of those little lines, just drawing out the paint from the center. And my cat is trying to be in the video like usual, so I will tolerate her as long as I can, and then I will kick her out of my room because I need to paint in peace. This looks kind of like an eyeball with a bunch of cool eyelashes there. And now we can take our brush with a little bit of black paint and make sure I have enough water on there. And we can start adding in just the little dots around the ranunculus. And we're going to stagger them too, just to make them as natural as possible and not too uniform, okay? Lots of dots on this one. I'm gonna let this dry just a little bit. We'll come back to it with petals. So the next thing I want to do is a ranunculus, and sometimes it's hard to figure out, how do you do a ranunculus versus a rose, for example. So ranunculus come in all sorts of colors. I'm gonna dab my brush and we're gonna save this spot for the sweet pea. I'll do the ranunculus over here. So I'm just going to start with tiny little concentric circles, just like you would with a rose, but I'm also going to keep everything pretty tight for a while. Those thin petals just continue to go around and around. Roses, I feel like, tend to open up a little bit faster, and so I'm trying to break up those circles a little bit here and there as well. I don't want them to be uniform, and like one circle then another circle, you know, which is why I have to keep working. Oh, how did I get yellow in there? That's fine. You can have different colors. Keep kind of working semi-slowly. And although this, you know, can feel like pretty easy process, sometimes you do need to, you know, just pay attention so that you're doing some circles here that are starting to just be staggered, and then we're getting a little bit larger. We're pressing down with the belly of the brush, creating a little bit more of those petals that are popping out. And I think that one is good. Let's do another one. Let's add some yellow in there too. Just maybe a little peachy color. Do another one right here, maybe a smaller little guy. So same thing, little circles starting to go around, making them really thin as well. If you get some pooling like I did, just remember to dab your brush and then you shouldn't have that problem. All right, continue to go around. There's so many flowers that look really similar, many flowers that have so many petals, and for me to do ranunculus, what's worked the best is just keeping those petals like really thin for the most part and then starting to branch out. Okay, let's do some stems. These are easy. We don't really need to let them dry, at least for this part. And I'm gonna do just a little bit of a wave in the stem here, and then this one too. Okay, so I was mistaken. I don't know what I was saying before with the leaves. The leaves are not like tendrils necessarily. They are unique though. So we kind of have like, almost look like cilantro. So we have kind of like a couple marks here, here, and here. And then we're gonna do another one. So we're going to just basically press down the belly of the brush, press down 2 little marks, and then 2 here. You can connect those together with the point of your brush. So let's do that again. We'll do another one right here. So little connecting points, just like so. And another one here. Maybe a little bit bigger. So it does remind me of like parsley or cilantro leaves a little bit. But we're being pretty loose with this, so, you know, not worrying too much about realism and all that stuff. This one I think can be a little bigger too. And just have a lot of fun with what you're painting, you know? That's the whole point of this whole thing. So that's gonna dry a bit. We're gonna do our sweet peas, but I wanna come back to the buttercups since all that's dry over there. We're gonna mix up this lovely semi-watery mix of yellow. So we're gonna we'll start with this guy. That's where we were going before. And we're just gonna press down the belly of the brush and fill it in, maybe leave some white space. We're gonna go for about 5 petals. And just gonna squiggle your brush, connect it over. And the white space really makes this look, I don't know, exquisite. You know what? We might actually, well, I can make 5 petals. We'll just extend a few of these, which is no problem. I love the white space. Now this looks like a really fun vintage flower with the brown and then that golden yellow. It's great. So we are skinnier here and then we're getting thicker as we're kind of just scrubbing our brush and wiggling our brush. And there you go. That is my version of the buttercup. Okay, let's do the same thing over here. So we can't do as many, of course, many petals because this one is covered by that one, but that's okay. Squiggle, squiggle, fill in that space, make it a little bit wider if you need to, and just have like, you know, so much fun with all of this because there really is a lot of fun to be had. florals. I mean, there's really no end to what you can paint. I know someone is mowing their lawn right now, and that's just how it is, so I apologize if there's any feedback, but I know it won't mess with the video that you're able to see, so at least we can continue that way. Okay, so there we go with those guys. I'm gonna leave them here and see how much room I take up with my anemone, which I'm going to start painting now with the paint I already have here. And a little bit more water. We're gonna do 6 petals. Wiggle, wiggle, a bit wider and come together, kind of like with the Buttercup. So my little secret is to, if you have 6 petals you're doing, just alternate, you know, one and then you go the other side so that you can get them all matched up pretty well. And it's less stressful than trying to figure out how to do it, and then later you realize, oh, I don't have enough space for all the 6 petals, which is a frustration. I'm dipping into my paint. I've got to be aware of my space. Just reminding myself. So this one is going to be directly opposite here. Squiggling your brush, see how easy that is, and then filling in for the most part there. Dipping into your paint. Let's do 2 more. I love this squiggling action. Just makes things a lot easier, I think, if you think about it in those terms, you know? So now we're painting from like a weird angle, for me at least, kind of a sort of rounded petal, filling in that space somewhat. And then there's a lot of room here. You can also extend your petals a little bit if you want, although if you have some hard lines that have already formed, you might not want to do that. But Ranunculus, you know, I'm not really sure how many petals they have, but they tend to have a lot and they layer over each other, so we can always come back and layer some more. I'm going to take off some of that extra liquid. It's going to take a while to dry, and it might give us some weird blooms, which is fine. That doesn't bother me. I'm just going to keep skipping around. So I'm going to just do a sweet little petal here. Sweet little leaf for our little guys. Buttercups. Huh, there it is. I was like, what are those called again? That's right, buttercups is what I'm calling them today. And another one here. See how easy that was? Just filling in that space, those cute little leaves to complement our little florals today. And you can even do just a few little marks just to complete your design. All right, going over to the Queen Anne's lace. All right, just a little bit of paint, a little bit of color. Keep these really light. So yeah, we're just gonna do these little kind of groupings, stippling in some of those blooms and staggering them. You can keep them to where you see your stems sticking up, or you can just invent stems and add them in down below, higher up. You know, just have a lot of fun with it. Okay? We don't want them all to kind of be the same, you know, length and stuff. And I'm actually going to just do a little bit of splatter. All right, there we go. Just to extend the party. Okay, so now this is drying, doing its thing. I'm going to I'm gonna dip into the black actually. See if I have enough water on my paintbrush, just for a few little dots in the middle. Just a little bit of an accent there. Just like that. Not too much. Okay, I think it's time to do our sweet peas just to get them on the paper. So more pink on my palette. And lots of water. I'm gonna go really light. So for these guys, we are going to do some kind of little blobby things. And you know, they're just these really interesting ripply florals, loose, really watery, you know, floral style. And so I'm just going to add them in, you know, kind of interpreting what we might see if we saw these in a vase, you know. And then the stems are actually what really make them look like sweet peas. So let's add those stems now. I'm gonna add some yellow to my green, lighten it up a bit for a change. So these stems, they curl up. kind of funny. And just I'll sketch them in like that, which is kind of interesting. And they're really cute like that. They're gonna mix together a little bit with everything, with the pink, and that's okay. If you get green in there, no worries. Just do your best to continue with your painting and not worry, because watercolor is going to mix. That's what it does. That's part of who it is, and we can't get upset at it. This one I would say is looking a little bit strange. So let me take off some of that paint. Let's try again. So it's giving us a nice canvas. I'm even just gonna dip right in here. A canvas to paint on, and we can augment some things. Just a little bit of some fluffiness here. So some of these are bigger. That one got really big, actually, which is okay. But I might make some of these a little bit bigger too, because that one is a little bit small comparatively. So that's a nice thing. You can keep working, and I'm just sort of scribbling in some shapes. Yeah, when I look at a sweet pea, I just think, well, there's so many, you know, folds and stuff happening here. How will I ever capture this? But you figure it out. You figure it out. All right, so we're gonna take some more pink on here, and I'm gonna take a little bit of black. Now that darkened it up a lot, and I'm going to go over my ranunculus, and just with these little thin C-curve shapes, and this is going to be our shadow for the flowers. So I'm really not thinking about this too much. I just want to put, you know, the marks on there and really accent this whole thing so it looks more three-dimensional. And then we had kind of a peachy color on here, so I'm going to take my pink and I'm going to take my cadmium yellow and mix it together, and whatever we get, that's what we're gonna use. So my middle is up here, it's not in the center at all, and just little sketchy marks, just keeping with the theme of thinner and then getting a little thicker finally on the outside. Really quick, really easy. So now I'm gonna take this more watery mix of pink, but it's got more pigment in it than we started, and we're going to paint some more petals over the top just to create a little bit more dimension for these guys. They're layered and they're just kind of hanging out all over each other. All right, let's try to get a few more petals in here over the top. This layering effect is gonna cause it to look much fuller and fluffier. And it's okay if they touch, and it's okay if some of them are not completely filled in like we were doing before. So here we go. I think anemone are just so beautiful. I love their centers. They're so unique. And also the name is, let's be honest, pretty cute too. So I hadn't heard about anemones until several years ago, and I just fell in love with them. They're quite appealing, I would say. All right, so take a look at your flower and see if all the petals are touching how you want them. If not, you can add in, you know, a little bit more floral bits and that kind of thing. So we're gonna let that one dry. And what we can do for the leaf situation, and this is a nice green here. It's got some brightness to it, but we can kind of do some cool, like, this is kind of how they have their leaves are kind of like those tendrils again. So just like a little bit of, you know, little things on here. So again, not being too like worried about realism, but I'm just kind of seeing in the reference photo what it looks like to me, and I'm just using an artist's, what do you call it? You know, your eye, just looking at it, but then also using my own discretion, that's the word. Using my own discretion for how I'm going to paint these. Just little scratchy, sketchy marks, yeah, just to fill in some of that space, okay? A little bit for our anemone, and just let it hang out for now. So we've got a few more things to do. We are almost done with this, which is pretty exciting. I want to add a little bit of drop of color. Let's go darker because that didn't show up. A little bit of sketchy marks and just kind of letting your brush decide, you know, what your leaves are going to turn out like. Just let them kind of scrub around and figure it out. And then we're just going to darken up this stem also. I like our little leaves. They're just really fun. And I did dip into this, so I'm trying to rectify it just a little bit of sketchy. And that's why I love a nice pointed round brush, because you can do these beautiful sketchy marks and you don't need a very, very thin brush to accomplish what you want. If you're wanting some good, you know, thin marks, of course, then it can do that. One and done with one brush. And this is the number 8, so it's not like it's a terribly small, you know, tipped brush. Just gonna darken some of these up. I'm noticing this guy being a little obstinate, so I'm gonna paint in a little bit more, just right here. If you have too much liquid, you can also remove it as well. We're gonna get some nice, some brush strokes here. We're gonna get some nice blooms, and that's okay. It's just part of our texture. I want to just go over a little bit more yellow on the sweet pea and just sweet pea. Did I say sweet pea? Let's do a little orangey yellow too. Just to go over the buttercup and a little bit of accent here, just to make them stand out. Some really quick little marks, nothing too serious or complicated. A little bit of shadow sides. And then last but not least, I believe we have our sweet peas, which I think they could do a nice mix of this purple and pink. So I'm just needing a little bit more water here on my brush and just kind of making some sketchy marks and just enjoying that little bit of pop of color. So maybe you can press down really hard with lots of pressure, and then maybe some really light pressure in other spots, or just some tiny little marks. I also just wanted to add even a third quick layer here. So you can do 2 or 3 colors, and that can be just kind of fun. If you want to go a little bit darker, a little bit fancier, or just a little bit non-traditional, you can do that. All right, guys, thanks for being here, and I'll see you soon on the next video.